Welcome to another edition of the TSS podcast, brought to you in association with Luke 1977 and Bowden and Dolphin, with your hosts Rob Carless from Bob's Books and the legend that is Shaun Teale. He's here, there, and everywhere, and he's Tealey saying something.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the TSS podcast. By now you will know the abbreviation. It is for the Teale Saying Something podcast. A couple of years ago I started working with Shaun Teale, the ex-Villa, Bournemouth and a few other clubs legend. And we got together and did his book, and we've decided to carry on and do podcasts as well. We got on that well, although that's what I tell him. But there you go. So without further ado, it's a bit of a celebration this week, guys, because it is our 10th podcast.
Ooh.
How about that? Round of applause.
Where's that time gone? Where's it gone?
Absolutely. We are into double figures, so I'm sure we'll be winning the award soon.
Of course, yeah.
Exactly. So, without further ado, hello, Mr. Shaun Teale.
Good evening, Rob.
How are we?
Always good, as you know.
Oh, I know that. The sun always shines on the righteous.
So they say.
Yeah, and talking about the wrongous, if that's even a word, we've obviously got the man who puts everything together for us, Mr. Chris Browne. Chris Browne.
You said that last week.
Yeah. Chris Browne, our brilliant producer. How are you doing this week, Chris?
I'm doing fantastic.
There must be something wrong with him this week because he's got a Birmingham City top on.
That's Wembley, isn't it? Come on.
Oh, yeah, of course it is. And I guess for you, it's happy
Obafemi, yeah.
Obafemi Day, isn't it? When you accidentally won that cup in 2011 when Arsenal gave it to you. Right, so you've got to another final, Chris, very quickly. You're in the Virtu Cup final against Peterborough.
Yeah.
Is that the name of a bloke, by the way? Is that a football team? Peterborough.
What?
Oh, no, yeah. Shaun.
I just thought I'd get the crap jokes in before we make a start. Yeah, so you're going to go to Wembley?
Yes, I'm going to Wembley, yeah.
Have you got your tickets?
No, yeah.
I've heard they're free with a box of cornflakes.
Well, I'm told it could be up to 50,000 tickets now, so.
50,000?
Yeah,
okay.
So I'm bound to get one.
Yeah, I would imagine that you'll get one for that one. And of course, you're still doing well in the league.
Yeah. Yep.
So it looks like you're on for a cup double.
Yeah. Ironic, isn't it? Facing Barry Fry, the last person to get a cup double.
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon that's going to be quite a good game. I can't see you losing it.
No.
Are Peterborough in old money? Are they an old fourth division club?
Oh yeah,
they are. They're not in the third division, are they?
No,
like you are.
Yeah.
Okay, I led you nicely into that one there, didn't I?
I mean, to be fair, they were 2-0 down at Wrexham and come back to...
Yeah, what a comeback. Yeah.
You can imagine the Disney Channel and all these Americans going absolutely mad thinking that it's going to be a Wrexham Blues final. And of course, you've got all the razzmatazz to go with it. And then Peterborough do it.
Yeah.
So fair play to Peterborough for that one. Right, Teale. Obviously, we had an away game. 4 or 5 games on the trot. So obviously, you wasn't doing your ambassadorial role. We're not going to laugh about that this week, Chris.
Freeloading.
We're not going to say freeloader. Don't say that word. No. Don't say that word at all. No. So, bad result against Crystal Palace.
Awful result, really, considering. It was a weird game because I thought for the first half an hour we controlled the actual game. And then we just ship another bad goal and you think, oh, here we go again. I have to say, I thought that the VAR decision on Ollie Watkins was an absolute joke. I mean, you're talking the width of a toenail. He's offside there, and then obviously we got ourselves back in the game. We score, a good goal, a great finish from Morgan Rogers, and then we start playing stupid football along our 18-yard box. And it wasn't the first time John McGinn's done it this season, and he keeps doing the same thing. He keeps going right along our 18-yard box and giving people chances to close us down. And I just, I know Unai's got a certain way of playing, but sometimes you think to yourself, well, let's just keep it at 1-1 and get the ball forward earlier and play in their half. But we don't seem to go down that line. So it is what it is. It's a big 3 points lost for me, but
Yeah,
We've got some big
after
games coming
beating
up.
Chelsea on Saturday. And putting ourselves back in that mix. I mean, even now we're only 4 points off the top 4 or 5. Yeah. So it's certainly not as apocalyptic as what certain fans are doing on social media about. There's still plenty to play for. But I guess the problem that we've got is that the games are going thick and fast now, and we may run out of games on that one.
Well, the thing is with Brentford away as well, we know how good they are at home. So Brentford away is going to be a tough game for us. That's on the 8th, and then obviously we don't play again then till we play. Is it Forest at home on the is it the 1st or the 5th of April? It's there's a big gap because of international break. So the one good thing about the international break coming when it does is we can get people fit again, and we should be in a position where we've got more or less a full squad by then.
Yeah, correct. I do agree with that. It does look like the players will be back for then. I think players like Torres are only a couple of weeks away. I'm not sure about Ross Barkley.
Yeah, that's a strange one.
Wasn't
it was reported as being a calf strain, but it turns out, in Ross's own words, that he had a slight tear on his MCL, caused by continually playing when he probably should have stepped out. But, it's a bit sort of old school, that, because that's what we used to do. We would never admit to being injured because you don't want to lose your place in the side, even though, you might be in agony a few days before the game. But, fair play to him. He's come out and told us why and sort of put everything to bed. So, and I don't think he's a million miles away, to be fair. It sounds like he's quite close himself.
Are you doing the Cardiff game tomorrow night?
I certainly am, yes.
Okay.
I am.
Should hopefully win that game.
And then I'm going away on the 10th.
Oh, of course, he's got that free holiday, hasn't he?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law arrived at his new villa today, got the keys, so he's in. So I've got 16 nights there.
Freeloading again.
Don't use that word, Chris. We said we wouldn't use freeloading on that freeloader.
Well, next time we do this, I'll be in Spain.
Unfortunately, we'll still.
But I won't rub it in, obviously.
Oh no, of course you won't. Yeah, whilst I'm in this cold studio.
But It's not cold in there. It's like a fridge.
No, it's warm today now.
It is warm.
Yeah.
It is warm today. It's not too bad at all. Right, so obviously Chris mentioned Wembley there. There's another game, another final taking place in a couple of weeks' time, and that's the League Cup final. I think it's the Carabao Cup that is the sponsor for it still, although I do kind of like miss it being called the League Cup.
Yeah.
Because it was quite easy to do that. And obviously it's gone through a transformation with sponsors. It is the 65th final, right? Which is quite spectacular when you think that it was derided in its first couple of seasons. The big guns didn't really play in it. Fleet Street didn't like it. And now 65 years later, we're looking forward to, as I said there, the 65th. It is the first cup final that I ever went to at Wembley. And I think it's a brilliant competition, an absolute brilliant competition. And I'm very pleased to say that we've got two absolute legends of not only the game itself, but the League Cup. We have Mr. Brian Little, who is one of the very few that has played and managed a club to win the League Cup. And we've also got an absolute legend from Wolverhampton Wanderers, Mr. Kenny Hibbitt, who won it twice in the golden years of the 70s. So we thought it'd be a good idea to get those guys onto today's show so we can, reminisce and look back at the last 64. I personally think that the 70s period of it was a great time for the competition. And for the vast majority of seasons, apart from maybe one or two, Midlands clubs got to the final. So it's something that, holds a special place within this particular region. So welcome, Brian Little and Kenny Hibbitt.
Thank you.
How you doing? All right.
Yeah,
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Brian.
Good.
Good.
Not too bad, not too bad. Right, so as you guys know, I'd like to, as I've got you both on here now, I'd like to personally thank you for your contributions for my League Cup book, which came out about 4 or 5 months ago. Browne, you did the foreword as well.
Yeah.
And Kenny, you gave me some great memoirs from 74 and 80.
Cheers, Rob.
So thank you very much for that.
Very welcome.
Yeah, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure dealing with you both for this. And the book is good because obviously you wrote it. But it also has a lot of fans' memoirs as well as ex-players. And I also got Keith Hackett, who did the 86 final, involved in this as well. But what I want to do is, Chris, I'm going to speak to you about your memoirs of the cup as well, because it's been an important one for Birmingham City as well. But what I want to do is just go back a little bit to that golden era of the 70s. In 1967, it became a Wembley showpiece, having been played as a home and away basis. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Up until 1967. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to ask questions all the way through this. So I'm going to keep your brains ticking over on it. Can somebody tell me who won the first final when it was played at Wembley? And it was 1967.
Not Swindon?
No. It was a giant killer.
Oh, right,
but it was 2 years before Swindon. And it involves another West Midlands club.
Coventry?
Nope.
Another West Midlands?
Leicester?
Nope. West Midlands club. Kenny,
Forest?
Rivals.
It's going to be Birmingham, isn't it?
It's not Birmingham. It's West
Bromwich.
It's West Bromwich Albion that
really?
Yeah, Albion went 2 up, and QPR scored 3 goals in the last 20 minutes or so. Mark Lazarus getting the winning goal.
Oh, yes, coming back that now. Yeah.
So that was the first one, and then of course we go into the 70s. They're not shown live on TV, it's nothing like the FA Cup. And when it was set up by the powers that be, it was never set up to compete with the FA Cup, and let's face it, there was no chance of it doing so. FA Cup is live on, or was live on, both channels, but it was set up to accommodate football clubs that started to get floodlights. And also as well, it was a recommendation from Alan Hardacre, who was the secretary of the Football League at that time. And he originally wanted it to be a competition for teams that went out of the FA Cup.
Really?
Yeah. So it started in 1960/61. In fact, the first final was won by Aston Villa.
Yeah.
We've won it 5 times, Chris.
Yes.
Okay. I may mention that a few times during this.
No. It's all in black and white now, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what was strange about that first one is the final against Rotherham United, home and away, was played at the start of the following season. So it wasn't at the end of the 60/61. We won it in the 61/62. But it's classed as the first one.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we had some wonderful finals in the 70s, and one of those was in 1974. Now, this was a very interesting year for the League Cup, because a lot of the games in the early stages of it were played, and the only time it's ever happened, they were played at 3 o'clock and 2 o'clock and things like that. And the reason for that is because we'd had the blackouts. Okay. So the clubs couldn't use their floodlights.
Even after all that time?
Yeah, absolutely, really? Because of the oil embargo that was going on at the time. Okay. So, Kenny, quick question for yourself then. We'll talk about the 1973-74 season then, when you won that cup and you scored the goal as well. Did you play in any of the games that were not played on the evening? Can you remember that?
Yes, we played Exeter City in an afternoon game in a cup match. I remember it really well because we struggled for 45 minutes. I just scored a minute before half time, make it 1-0, and the fans were getting a bit upset with the manager and they were having a bit of stake. Anyway, we ended up winning 5-1. But that was it was a feeling of, it wasn't quite a good feeling, but we had to accept the fact that we had to play the game in the afternoon, and I don't think there were a big amount of fans there. I think there was something like 11 or 12,000 there, which was normally we'd get 20 odd thousand. But it felt a bit strange.
Yeah, I bet it did. Did you? I mean, can you remember your running from that first game again? Was it Exeter City? You said.
Was it what?
Who did you play in that first game?
Well, no, the first Exeter City.
Yeah, right.
That was that was the first game I played in. When we had to play without the lights.
Yeah. Okay. When did you realise during that campaign that you were in with a shout? Was there a particular time during the run into Wembley when you thought, you know what, this could be our year?
Not really. I think it was a matter of winning the next game. If you're drawn against a team, it's just about the 90-minute game that you got in front of you. Never dreamt. I mean, I, as a kid growing up, you always dreamt of playing at Wembley. I've seen every FA Cup game, the World Cup matches. When we won the World Cup in '66, and as a kid growing up, your dream is to play at Wembley, but it never entered my mind until we got to the semi-final, and then you think, well, we're pretty close here, and of course we were very fortunate to get through to the final, and then that was my dream come true.
Who did you play in the semi-final? Can you remember?
I knew you were going to ask me that question.
I always ask these questions.
Oh, I don't know who it was.
Well, we've got.
I can't tell you. You'd have to tell me.
Go on, Chris.
I semi-final.
Yeah,
Was it Blues?
in 73, 74.
Was it Blues?
I don't know. Was it?
I don't know.
Can you have
No.
a Google? He's not looking on Google this week.
Sorry.
Was it Swindon?
I think Swindon was the 79-80 season.
Was it?
Good to see you've done your own work, Rob.
I just wrote the book, that's all. That's
You should
all.
know it if you wrote a book.
I like to catch people out on these. I did it in the 2003 final.
What year did you say?
The 73-74 season of the League Cup.
74.
He's Googled it now.
I'll have a look at you. Wolverhampton was in the final.
They played Manchester City in the final. And we'll come to that one in a second.
Yeah. Right, you're going to have to bear with me now.
Okay.
My,
whilst you're doing that, okay. So
semi-final.
you won the semi-final.
Yeah.
Kenny.
Yeah.
Norwich.
It was Norwich. Now that's
Oh,
interesting.
that's right. Yeah, John Richards scored.
Yeah. Yes, he did. Yeah, 79th minute. Yeah, John Richards.
John Richards got the winner.
Norwich got to 2 finals in the 70s and didn't play well in both of them. And I'm really glad to say that they didn't in 75, but we'll come on to that one in a minute with Browne. So you're through to the final. You're playing Man City. Man City had done really well in competitions in the latter part of the 60s and the start of the 70s when they were league champions. You weren't quite favourites on that day. I think Manchester City were the favourites for it. Tell us about the build-up, Kenny, from what we call Wembley week. So you finished on the Saturday and you played your league games, and now you're concentrating on the final Wembley. Tell us a little bit more about that.
We had a few days down in Worthing as a sort of a build up to the game and getting a bit of camaraderie amongst us, and we had some great fun. We had some great hard training sessions, and it was good preparation actually for something that half the team and maybe most of the team had never been to Wembley or even played in a cup final. And we had a lot of youngsters, Jeff Palmer, John Richards, myself, Barry Powell was on the bench, Stevie Tealey was there, Jeff Palmer. So we had a lot of youngsters, but we had also some good experienced players in Mike Bailey, the captain, and Derek Dugan up front, Derek Parkin, John McCall. So we had we weren't frightened of Man City at all. We had a lot of confidence in the dressing room before the game. I was very nervous playing anyway, but on that particular day I was exceptionally nervous. And then you looked at the Man City team and you think, you come down the tunnel of the old Wembley, and looking across, you'd look at Dennis Law and people like that, and Colin Bell, Rodney Marsh, and they were just full of talent. And they were tossing the ball up as though it was just another game, off the shoulder. They'd all played at Wembley before, international games as well. And and then you get called down the tunnel, and you walk down the tunnel, and right facing us as we walked out, we were all a bit nervous, but we saw 50,000 black and gold fans right in front of us, and I think that lifted us tremendously. And very honoured to walk onto the Wembley turf, which I'd never been before. And it built our confidence up there, just having that, seeing them fans. They played a massive part in our result.
Had you been there to watch finals and things like that at Wembley? My first cup final I went to went with my mate, and it was 1968, and I saw West Brom win 1-0, and Jeff Hassel scored, if you remember. He hit the edge of the box, it came back to him, and then he drove in top of the net. So that was my first visit to Wembley, and that's. I mean, I was 16 or 17, and that was my dream, was to play there, and fortunately, it happened. Did you the nerves that you had? Were they terrible? Were they like sport ones, or was it psychological to you? How did it affect you? What kind of thing?
It affected me from Thursday afternoon, Friday, Saturday mornings, until I got on the pitch.
Wow.
And as soon as I walked over that white line, that was it. It had all gone. And then I was concentrating on playing the game. But the build-up was, my wife played a massive part in that, with taking the children away, kept him away from me for Thursday and Friday afternoon so I could have a sleep. Well, I tried to sleep, but it was I was horrendous to live with as well. But she put up with that, and she gave me some fantastic support. I don't know why it happened, but I ended up in the end having ulcerative colitis for 30 years, and they reckon that's how it all started.
Okay, so I presume you didn't get much sleep at all during those?
Not really. It was just resting, his feet up, and I was already thinking about what was going to happen in the game, and if you got into certain situations, would I put it in the net? Did I make a mistake? I was sort of too negative rather than being positive. But you got through it, and once I got on the pitch, as I say, we walked down the tunnel. It all disappeared. Then I would do my job. You had to do your job then.
So tell us a little bit more about the game. Did it go quick? Did it pass you by? Tell us about your goal as well, because obviously,
well, it did.
You scored the first goal.
Well, it did actually. It did go very quickly. The goal actually came from a ball pushed down to Alan Sunderland down the right wing, who laid it back to Jeff Palmer. Then he hooked it. I used to get when it got pulled back, I was the one from midfield trying to break into the penalty box, and as he upped it across Jeff Palmer, John Richards came out to try and control it, and I lost it for a couple of seconds, and I went for the volley and I went through the ball and it started my foot, and Keith McRae was in goal. I think he went for the power shot, and he went dived and it sort of lobbed in over the top of him, and I knew it was in there, and I didn't see it at the back of the net. I was just off celebrating, and then all the players came on top of me, and then my mother was sitting in the stand, and unfortunately my dad wasn't there. He passed. He died had a heart attack at 40, so he never had the opportunity to see his play there. And my name went up in lights, and she never saw the second half because she had tears in her eyes all through the second half game, because she was up. She would wish my dad had been there to see it. And it was brilliant.
So as soon as you hit the ball, did you know it was going to go into the net?
Not really, because I didn't catch it like I wanted to. I want a full volley, and the boys will tell you sometimes you get it on the laces and you hit it so true that the keeper makes a save. But this time I sort of sliced it off the top of my foot. I don't tell people that, though. There's only you that knows.
It was a superb shot.
And it sort of lobbed into the back. Yeah, the back of it. It went in, and that was the main thing.
Exactly. So you win the game 2-1.
Yeah.
Okay, you've won the League Cup.
Yeah.
I remember it being glorious Technicolor, that 70s thing. You got the sky blue Man City and obviously the old gold of Wolverhampton. It was the first final that I remember. The referee blows his final whistle and you've won that game. Tell me a little bit more about how you felt personally and how you felt as a team going up, and what's it like to go up to the steps and win that?
Well, not forgetting that it wasn't long after we won that League Cup that the captain of England had walked up there and got the World Cup in '66. So it wasn't that far, away from that, and that was something that I'd always dreamt, because I'd watched every cup final as a kid growing up with my brother and my dad, seeing her walk up them famous steps, and there was the opportunity for I was doing that, and I just tried to take everything in as much as I possibly could, because it might have never happened again, and it was a wonderful feeling. And of course, for the younger ones, you just didn't want it to end at the end when you were running around with the cup, which the boys will tell you that it's something that we always dream about as a kid growing up, and that's your ambition, to be successful. But that walking on that turf in the first place was something I'll never ever forget. And then going up them steps, following Mike Bailey, our captain, who was a superb player and a superb captain, who sadly now has got dementia. He went up and collected that cup, and we were so proud of him. And he led the team well that season as well. Well, he led the team well, very well, throughout my time playing with him. But it was something, Rob, that you'd never forget that feeling, and that's what the sport's all about. It's trying to achieve something that you target. But you need good team spirit, and we had that. We had it in abundance. We had some very good players.
Yeah, absolutely. Wolves were the fourth West Midlands club to have won it, following Villa, Birmingham, and West Bromwich Albion as well, who all won theirs in the home and away part of the first couple of years of it. Yeah. What I love about the League Cup is, they call the FA Cup the People's Cup. And I think that the League Cup itself is the club's cup, because, it's given, opus moments to teams such as Rotherham. Bradford got to the final only 10 or so years ago. And in 1975, it was the one and only time that two teams contested the final that weren't part of the first division, playing the elite football, and both of them were in the second division, going for promotion. I remember this final very well. I didn't actually go to the final itself, but my uncles did. I was only about 8 or 9 at that time. So it was Aston Villa versus Norwich City, and this is where Mr. Brian Little played in his first final. What a season that was, Browne, when you look back at the fact that we'd gone down in the latter part of the 60s and reached the third division and then come back up. We'd done quite well in the second division. Then Manchester United come down, and then we're in a tussle with them to actually go back up that season with Norwich City. What a season that must have been for you. We're playing in the second division and we reach a Wembley final. Tell us a little bit more about that, Browne.
Yeah, well, I think I'm glad I wasn't as nervous as Kenny when I played, because I think I was probably the most laid back, lazy so-and-so under the sun in those days,
That's Shaun that's got that one.
It was just brilliant. I mean, Ron Saunders had came months before the season, and he really, I didn't get on with Ron. It's no secret that I didn't get on with him, because I was too laid back for him and everything. But he was so far ahead of his time. We were doing like we were like core training and all sorts of things before anybody knew about core. He used to call them, you're doing bodies and abdoms and things like that. But he transformed a team that generally were part of that era where, on a Tuesday night you all went out because you were off Wednesday and you still come in on a Thursday. Some other lads stinking of drink and stuff like that. It was like that. And a team bonding session was a real night out. I personally didn't like that, but it was one of those things. But he got us as fit as a team could ever be. I mean, we were renowned for, as the game went on in football, we were renowned under him to be a team that, as the game went on, we got stronger and stronger, and we were really fit as can be, sort of thing. But the season itself for me was brilliant. I mean, I have a few stats I've taught, looking about, knowing this was coming up, I've had a look at it, but weren't 100% sure. But that season I played 44 games and scored 22 goals, and I wasn't a main striker as such. I used to drift around and play here, there, and play where I wanted, really, in many respects. And the League Cup was a pretty hard campaign for us because, there weren't two-legged things in that period, but we drew our first 3 games, so we played like a replay for the first 3 games. The only team we beat on a one-legged thing was Colchester away, 2-1. And then we had to play Chester in the semi-final. But we drew at home with Everton, our first game in that cup competition. And then we actually beat them away from home 3-0 in the replay, which was crazy. And I know for a fact that I didn't play in that game. I got injured and I missed that game. So whether it was my fault we only drew at home or not, I don't know. But so we drew with Everton at home and then beat them 3-0. And you're still in the hat. Then you play Crewe Alexander away from home and you're thinking, here we go again. This is a doddle. But we drew 2-2 and we scrambled a 2-2 draw. Then we played them at home. And scraped through 1-0. Then we played Hartlepool and drew them 1-1 away from home. So we're not doing very well, we're not. And then we beat Hartlepool 6-1. And I think that might have been the point where you're thinking, thank God we're starting to play football here, against teams. We drew Colchester in would have been the quarterfinal. It's a very significant game for me, personally, emotionally, because my brother Alan scored in that game, and I recently lost my younger brother, and that's every time I look at that, it drives me around the twist, and I shouldn't have mentioned it because it makes me it makes me very sad. But the great thing was we played together in that game. We played 3 or 4 times in the team that season together. So that's something that is very always in my mind, that particular game. And then we beat Chester in the semi-final in a 2-legged game, but we drew 2-2 at Chester. And Michael Owen's father scored in that game. I remember that. And we beat them 3-2 at Villa Park. So we scraped through to the final, really, and I scored a goal late in the game. Keith Leonard scored 2. So we scraped our way to the final. We never played anyone of any significance apart from Everton to start with. And every game was like a real battle. It was like, and I look back at it and think, crikey, we were probably quite lucky to get to the final itself, really. We never played overly well. A couple of times we did. And obviously we played Norwich in the final, which was a game of 2 teams. Norwich must have went up with us that year as well, did they or not? I can't remember. Man United and ourselves went up. Man United and ourselves, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, Norwich did come up. They were at those times. It was before the playoffs. So
yeah. So ourselves and Man U that went up, wasn't it? Yeah. So but it was a great season for me personally. I scored a lot of goals. I played with a lad called Keith Leonard, who was a most underrated centre forward. He was big and strong, not the most mobile, but a really good player. And, we had people like Chris Nichol in there, which was great. Chico Hamilton, who was a really great guy, one of the funniest fellas I've ever met in my life. Again, Chico unfortunately passed away this last year again. A great season. It was like... And I remember at the end of that season, I believe the England manager was at the final, and I got selected for the England team on the back of that performance in the final. I felt I played. I say this to players, and when I became a manager, I said to players, "How did you play today?" And they'll say, "Oh, I did okay." After that game, if anybody had said to me, "How did you play today?" I said, "Oh, I would say, I played great today." You know yourself, and you can be confident. I think a lot of people say, "Oh, I was okay." And that's like a bit of a cop-out, isn't it? Yeah, you're not like looking after yourself. So I always felt, even at that age, I would say, okay, I wasn't good enough. If I used the word okay, I wasn't good enough. So, yeah. But I remember saying to people, I played well today. And I felt in myself that I played well. And it got me, that particular game got me into the England group that particular year. So it was really exciting for me. Bursting onto the scenes, now going to play in the first division. and I know I'm going off the subject here, but we played Leeds about the third game in the season, and I thought, my God, I'm not good enough, because they absolutely took us to pieces and won 1-0, I think, but it was like a 7-0 defeat, really. They were that good. Who's that? Is that yours, Teale?
Yeah.
Wait till my two start. I tell you,
pain in the backside, my two.
So anyway, it was a great season for me, Rob. I really enjoyed it. I'd made a little bit of a name for myself, and it was the start of something that didn't last too much longer afterwards. But it was a great start for me.
It was the first time that two second division clubs, again, old money, got to the final. But also as well, the semi-final, the four teams, none of them were first division. So the team that Norwich beat was Manchester United. Of course,
yeah.
So the three that came up were the three in the semi-final, plus Chester City, and as you say, Michael Owen's dad playing for them.
Can I interject and say I was at that game, Villa Chester.
Well, why on earth do you support Birmingham City? Absolutely. Right, in '76, Manchester City gained a little bit of revenge by winning the League Cup, beating Newcastle United in the final. Dennis Stewart scores the overhead kick and never stopped telling people all about it. And then in the 1976-1977 season, Villa win it again. The first game that we play in, I think it was the second round, is against Manchester City. I was there that night. Brian, you scored an overhead kick from a corner, or I think it was from a corner.
Yeah.
I thought it was better than Dennis Stewart's, but I would say that, wouldn't I?
Well, the week before we beat them 3-0. And the week before we beat them in the League Cup, we actually lost it all at Main Road. We lost 2-0, I think. And the guy you've mentioned there, Dennis Stewart, I spent the whole game watching how good he was. I never got a kick that game. We played it in Main Road. I'm sure Kenny will agree with it. It was probably the biggest pitch I've ever played on Main Road. I tell you, it was absolutely massive. I used to hate going there. It was like... And they ran like, I mean, Colin Bell and people like that, they just were outrageous. And we played at Man City and lost two, but Dennis Stewart was like incredible. He was like doing things, and I'm standing watching him thinking, I don't do that. And he was like coming off short and spinning around the back, turning his defender. And I stood watching him like the whole game thinking, wow, I was massively impressed with Dennis Stewart as a football player. And within a 2-week period, I managed to turn it around because I tried doing a lot of things that he did in the game. And I scored an overhead kick, yes, but I also scored a goal. Chris Nicholl was right wing for whatever reason. I don't know how Chris Nicholl had ended up on the right wing outside the box. And he's passed it in me, and I've like backheeled it through the back of my legs and just spun and just planted it in the corner. And it's still my favourite goal I've ever scored. Because it just worked so well. The ball came into me. I flicked it through the back of my legs underneath, turned the player, stuck it in the bottom corner. And we'd beaten Man City 3-0 in that particular game from having been absolutely bladdered off the pitch the week before. And that campaign, that was the start of a campaign that went really well for us, to be honest,
It's interesting you talk about the fitness of Ron Saunders, because I think it really did reach its peak in the 76-77 season. I know we've won the European Cup and we've won the league and all that kind of stuff, but I will forever say my favourite season of all time will be the 76-77 season.
From an attacking point of view, I think you're right, aren't you? I mean, Andy Gray, who obviously went to Wolves after, and Andy, John Dean and myself,
correct,
scored over 70 goals in that season between the three of us. So, we were really, really going forward. We were outstanding, really. We had great backup with Mortimer and people like that in midfield, and Morty. I don't think Dennis ever got enough credit. I mean, I know he won the European Cup and get credit, but Dennis was an incredible signing for us, at that particular era. it was really good. We had a young Gordon Cowans coming through, which was great to see. We were a pretty decent side. Gidman was always a great fullback going forward.
Yeah.
We and Chris Nichol, of course, was solid as a rock.
Yeah.
It was a great season, especially in terms of how we played going forward, without a doubt.
Yeah, we beat the likes of Wrexham and Millwall.
Yes.
And the semi-final saw us play against Queen's Park Rangers whilst Everton were playing Bolton Wanderers.
Yeah.
So QPR had finished second in the league the season before, and again were slight favourites.
Yeah,
we're in the top 4 or 5 of the league that season. We draw 0-0 at Loftus Road, I think it was 0-0.
Yeah.
Great game at Villa Park, which saw us draw 2-2. And of course, in those days, the semi-finals were played on a home and away basis, but were not settled until a team actually won it. And then we win the toss, and we are chosen as the. QPR won the toss, didn't they? I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
we played. We played down at Highbury.
You did, you did. And we win the game 3-0. And if nobody knew the name Brian Little before that game, they certainly knew it after that night, because you scored all 3 goals.
Yeah.
Forever etched into my mind.
Yeah.
You scored your first goal in the 24th minute, and you scored the last one in the last minute of normal time. So we didn't need to go to a replay on it, another replay, or go into extra time. We won that game 3-0. How did you feel as the person that had scored those 3 goals on the night, and for the second year on the trot? And bearing in mind we were still in the FA Cup in that time as well, in that period. How did you feel? Did you class that as your best ever game in an Aston Villa shirt?
I'd be brutally honest here and say I never even worried about it. When I played football, I played football. All the lads were sitting drinking on the bus and everything. I had to just sit at the fronts with a Coca-Cola. I mean, Teale knows I don't really drink or anything like that. It's not my thing. But all the lads are celebrating. All the lads are jumping up and down. All the lads are getting carried away. And I just used to sit there after the game. I mean, I don't know why. That was just my way. I just came right back down to earth very, very quickly. So it wasn't anything that I ever got overly. I mean, I can't remember even. When Andy Gray used to score a goal, I used to think, why doesn't he just go back to the halfway line? But he started all these celebration things and everything. I mean, I used to stick my hand in the air and go, that's it, that'll do, sort of thing. I've scored. I can't. When I look back at it now, I think, wow, how was I like that? Because when I became a manager later on, I was a nervous wreck sort of thing at times, But I played the game and just enjoyed the game. I wasn't bothered. The nice thing about the Queen's Park Rangers game and the Everton finals, well, we were on decent appearance money. So, in the semi-final, we got an extra game. So that was some appearance money. And in the final, we got three appearance. We'd love to have drawn against Arsenal, Everton again. I mean, we would have continued playing Everton forever, to be honest. It was great. We were all going, oh, another appearance money. It was good money as well, and I'm sure the Everton lads were on exactly the same, in all fairness. I honestly, Rob, I find it really quite strange, but I know in those days I just took things with a pinch of salt. I played the game. I was never worried about a football match. I used to use it. I mean, the pitch was a stage for me, and it's like that. It just changed me, sort of thing. I don't know why or how, but I just wanted to show off, and that's what I did. I tried to look happy, easy, and George Best was my hero. When Bestie never really overdid anything on the pitch, he just did brilliant things, didn't he? Rodney Marsh, Stan Bowles, these sort of people were like all around, just ahead of me, in age, and just the way they went on a pitch was like ideal for me.
The first game at Wembley. That was the first final that I went to. Finished 0-0, possibly the worst ever final in the League Cup.
That's been written before.
Yeah, the only interesting part of that was one of the horses on the pitch lost one of its spurs, and the game was held up for 10 minutes. It was the best 10 minutes of the match, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, all the players were looking for it. We were all on the pitch looking for it. Well, we were we had both sets of players on the pitch trying to find a metal spur, and it was found. But yeah, it goes down in history that was the best thing about the game.
Absolutely. Then we play away. We play on neutral territory. No replays at Wembley. We play at Hillsborough. We drew 1-1. Still not a great game, but we're both still in it. And of course, we then go to Old Trafford, and we win the game 3-2. It goes into extra time. We're losing 1-0 for the vast majority of the game. Then Chris Nicholl scores that 50-yarder or wherever it was at that moment.
75, he said.
75, yeah, absolutely. And then you score from the tightest of angles to make it 2-1. And then Everton go up and score. So we're into extra time again, as we were in the game at Hillsborough. How are you? I mean, I know it was great money for you, as you've said. Are you running on just adrenaline at that stage after 3?
No, I don't think so. We were fitter than that. The extra time was the deciding factor in the game. We were very evenly matched, the two teams, but we were definitely the stronger in the extra time. I mean, Terry Darricott. I remember Smudger Gordon Smith passed the cross from the right-hand side. We lost Gordon years and years ago, unfortunately. But Terry Darricott couldn't pick his legs up. He couldn't kick the ball. He he looked as if he couldn't move. And I've knocked it in from about 3 yards. It'd come right across the box and rocked it in. And the game's over. Then it's the end of the game. Injury time's virtually there. And we won. I mean, we tried very hard to get Everton to score, to have another replay if we could have done, but we couldn't do it, to be honest. So
you scored that second goal.
If it'd been 5 minutes, I'm telling you, there would have been another goal in the game, I'm sure.
I'm surprised you never said to the referee I was offside for that last.
Yeah, So, but yeah, it was again a fantastic season. For not only the team, for me, I played 56 games that season. So it was a massive season for me.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed it. And obviously winning the cup for the second time. Again, I can remember I actually sat at the front of the bus, but on my own on the way back. Everybody else was singing and shouting in the bus and having a drink and having a cigar, because Saunders used to give cigars out and things like that after games. I couldn't be doing with that. So I just sat at the front on my own and just took it as it was. I was never an emotional person that in those days, really.
Right, so you've won it twice in the 70s at this stage. In 1979-80, Wolverhampton Wanderers stop Nottingham Forest winning it for the third consecutive time. Quick question for you there, Kenny. This is another pop quiz for you. So you beat them in 1980, and that's what we're going to come on to now. And we'll talk about the Swindon game as well, because obviously that was very significant. Can you tell me who Forest won in the two finals that they did before they played you? Can you tell me who they were?
No, I can't.
Okay, fair play.
And I can't either.
Kenny, when I get my quiz team together, I'm not calling you. Just so you know. So Forest won it in 78 by beating Liverpool and beat Southampton 3-2. So they're going for the hat-trick in 1980. You have bought Andy Gray. Who seems to have worked well into your team. Tell me what the difference was between winning the cup in 74 and winning it again in 1980.
Well, looking at back, we were playing the European champions as well, remember?
Correct.
Forest. And again, they were favourites. We were the underdogs for the second time. But it was something that, because most of us had tasted that success in 74, we knew what to expect. We looked forward to the game more than we did probably for the 80 than we did for the 74 game. The manager made a fantastic change in the team, which I thought was the right thing to do. I used to play on the right side of the midfield, but their main player was their left winger,
John Robertson.
Robbo. Yeah.
Okay.
Now Robbo was for me a very clever winger that could go past somebody. He didn't have that great pace, but he just had that something that could, go around and pass people very simple and easy. And then he used to put some great balls into the box. So we put Peter Daniel, our centre midfield player, on the right side and moved me inside. And Peter nullified the Forest, Forest player, and he never really got involved in the game. And so it worked a treat. And also Peter May, he played the 35, 40-yard ball into the penalty area that Shilton and Needham made a big cock-up. They both went for the same ball. Andy read it and tapped it in. I was pleased that he tapped it in with his left foot and not his right foot, because he probably missed it. But, like Brian was saying, Andy loved to celebrate a goal.
Oh, yeah.
And when he scored, he just went off on a run. We all tried to check, but I pulled off. I'll leave him to it. And he just loved scoring goals. He was like that in training. He was like that in five-a-side. And he was even more, on the match day. It was amazing. And
Kenny, can I just jump in there to you there? Do you know Andy nearly missed the game? Do you know he would have been suspended?
Yes. We had to play again.
We had to play. We were playing West Ham in the cup, and the fact that West Ham beat us in the last minute meant we had to play a game in midweek. Otherwise, Andy would have been suspended if we hadn't had another game in midweek. So it was
absolutely
crazy.
That's absolutely spot on, Browne.
But Andy, I remember, because I used to keep in touch with Andy, and he was like really at bits with himself. The outcome of our West Ham versus Aston Villa game determined if we'd have drawn, we'd have played a replay in midweek in that time, and Andy would have been suspended for the final. The fact that we lost opened him up to be free to play, sort of thing.
Absolutely, spot on. Yeah, it was
interesting.
It was great for Andy to score that goal, because obviously he was injured for the game in '77 and didn't make the actual final. So it was great to see Andy score that winning goal and win the cup there. Interesting from the book that I wrote is you found there was a difference, Kenny, between the celebrations that was put on in Wolverhampton in '74 to the final itself, and obviously the celebrations that followed after the Nottingham Forest win.
That's right. That's right, Rob. Yeah, it wasn't. We stayed in the Hilton Hotel in '74. Which was, and we had a fantastic evening. Great, the wives was there, and we had good dinner. We had celebrations. It was fantastic. But in the 1981, we came back to Wolverhampton, and it was awful. We stayed at the Mountain Hotel, which the manager had booked, but it wasn't right. A lot of the food had been eaten by the fans that had been there, the guests. So it didn't go down very well with the lads. But it wasn't. The Hilton one was fantastic. I've still got the bill for my chicken sandwiches for me and my wife when we got there. That was expensive, that was. But it was a different ball game when we came back to Wolverhampton in the 1981. It wasn't the best of celebrations at all.
Yeah. The final. So let's talk about Swindon in the semi-finals, because it looked like you were going out at one stage. And
it did.
We're going to do, get back into the final like they'd done in '69.
Yeah, absolutely. They played very well, Swindon, particularly in the first game as well. And now I live down not far from Swindon. I play golf with a massive Swindon Town fan, and he cannot stop telling me how lucky we were. He rubs it in all the time. I said, yeah, but we got there. You didn't,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Don Rogers.
We were a bit fortunate.
Yeah, Don Rogers helped me, did contribution to the book as well. And I went down to his shop in Swindon because I'm obviously down I live the same side of area as you do. And I sat in there with him for 20 minutes and it was more like an hour because everybody came in to go, all right, Don. It was, he was so popular still in Swindon. So we move into the 80s. It's quite amazing, really, that Liverpool have won it 10 times and possibly could make it 11 in a couple of weeks' time when they take on Newcastle United. But up until 1980 or 81 now, they hadn't won the competition, lost to Forest in 78, and then they win 4 on the trot. So they've really set themselves up as the team with the most wins in that the particular time. So we move into the 90s, and Ron Atkinson takes over at Villa Park and starts bringing in top players such as Teale and Atkinson, and Cyril and all them, and then has to buy Shaun Teale as well, just to make up some numbers.
With the money left over.
Yeah, with the money left over, yeah, right. Yeah, they playing cards, him and Harry Redknapp, and they got past the houses and it came to Teale. Love you really, Shaun, love you really. So, Shaun, you've played non-league football. We'll talk to you about for this, as it's your show. You played non-league football. And being told you're not going to make it into the professional game. What I love about your book is that you absolutely take no notice of it, and then a couple of years later, you play in the 1994 League Cup final. It's a very important win because it stops Manchester United doing the treble that year as well. We played Tranmere Rovers in the semi-final, and everybody says it's possibly the greatest ever two-legged semi-final. I can't dispute that. You missed the first game due to suspension, wasn't it, if I remember?
It was.
I should know that. I wrote your book. So you get back for the second leg. We're 3-1 down. Tell me a little bit about the atmosphere as you take to the pitch at Villa Park that day, and tell me about the goal that you score to bring us level on aggregate.
Well, first of all, I mean the atmosphere at Villa Park that day is the best I've ever known, and obviously that's including the likes of Bayern Munich this year and some of the other big games that have been at Villa Park. But it was one of those days when you couldn't really hear yourself think, it was that loud. But as Kenny and Browne will tell you, when you're on the pitch and you're swamped in the game, you don't hear the noise anyway. It disappears. It becomes a background noise, really. So obviously we're 3-1 down. We know nobody's ever come back from 3-1 down to get to Wembley. So there's a lot resting on the game. And we started off pretty well. We get the early breakthrough. I think Andy Townsend crosses the ball and Dino does his usual near post run and flicks it home. And then sort of, I think the crowd take over then because they get the feeling that it's now definitely on. We need one more goal to level the whole thing up. And yes, as you mentioned, very fortunately that honour fell to me. Albeit not a planned free kick as such. It was a free kick a long way out. And I think Ray Houghton just touched the ball to Kevin Richardson without anybody realising it had happened. And the ball came flying over from, it must have been 50 yards out. And it goes into that slow motion thing where you're running into the box, and Browne will justify me with this, that I never like running anyway. So I'm running into the box, and I can just see that the centre half's not going to get it. I think it was Mark Hughes was the centre half for Tranmere on the day, and it just felt perfect for me to just throw myself at it, really. And it hit the right corner of my head and went in the right way. If it hit the other corner, it could have gone anywhere, I suppose.
Obviously, we go on and win that, and then we play Manchester United. This is the 93-94 season, and it's the start of Fergie's great team version 1. Okay, we are playing terrible to the run up to the final. Manchester United are winning absolutely every game that they're playing in. We are massive underdogs for it, and we win the game 3-1. Okay.
Yeah.
What was it like beating Manchester United in the final?
Well, I suppose at the time it really didn't matter who we beat. The fact that we were at Wembley, and very much like Kenny said, that whole walking out on the pitch, a boyhood dream to play at Wembley, and all the things Kenny says are perfectly true. It was that, getting to that final that was the main thing. Whether it had been, Tranmere Rovers or Scunthorpe United would have played in the final, it wouldn't have made any difference to us. We just wanted to go there with a full house of, I think it was 84,000 at that stage they were allowed in. And we just wanted to win for ourselves first and foremost, but, for the supporters and for the club. So, it was a real big thing to get to Wembley. Well, it was for me personally, because, I'd played all those years in non-league. So to get a chance at what would have been then 28, going on 29, to finally get a chance to play in a big final was things that dreams are made of.
Yeah, it was just a wonderful time. It was a massively important win, and I feel that I need to give Chris a little bit of say so at this moment in time, because so was the 2011 League Cup final when Birmingham accidentally, I keep on saying that, but I'm only joking. You beat Arsenal in the final. I'll tell you why it was massively important for football. In the 70s and 80s, you got giant killing, which took place. And I'm thinking about your Southamptons, West Hams, Wimbledon in the 80s, Oxford winning stuff, Luton beating Arsenal. And then in 1991, we get Sheffield Wednesday beating Manchester United in the League Cup final. And then from that moment on until 2011, your supposed Sky 6 won the competition. Maybe Villa beating Manchester United, but we were doing well ourselves at that time. So no team had beaten the supposed top six at that stage. Wigan had lost 4-0 to Manchester United in 06, things like that. So it was all set for Arsenal to trounce Birmingham City, and Birmingham City win the game 2-1. And whilst I wish it had been another underdog, you deserve to win it. It was massively important for football that happened, because it was, so predictable. That your top clubs would win it. And then it spurred on Wigan the season after, who beat Manchester City in the final of the FA Cup. So you look at that period, right? And for Bradford to get to the final the year after as well against Swansea, be it that Swansea were a Premier League team at that time. But it was a very, very, very special time for football. And Birmingham City winning it was great for football at that moment in time. Interesting that Wigan won the cup and went down, and you did the same as well. I've asked you this before, Chris, and I know your answer to it, and most Blues fans that I talk to about this say, right, stop up and not win the League Cup, win the League Cup and go down as you did. What would you choose?
Win the League Cup.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You might never get a chance to do it again.
Yeah, I always say that football, unless you dine on that top table and you do it year in, year out, a la Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man United, Liverpool. I know Man United are not quite what they used to be, but all these teams, right, the Juventuses of this world, unless you support one of them, football is generally 99% disappointment for fans. Yeah? And it's that 1% that we cling to. So when you say to me that you're glad that you wouldn't have changed anything, I think you're 100% right there. No. The footballer that goes, well, look at my finishing in the top 4 medal, right, to his grandkids, right? If he's got that medal like these guys have got that are on our show tonight, it's fantastic.
Totally agree.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, we've been talking for just over an hour now. I know it's been fascinating speaking about the finals that these guys played in. Each one of you, and I include Shaun Teale on this one, made a massive contribution to the league. Tealey's smile when he turned round and he's realised that he scored a goal. It just goes down in folklore as much as Browne scoring that goal in the last second in 77. The disappointment on his face when he realises he hasn't got any more money for game 4. But there you go, Kenny, your goal. And and win it again 6 years later. These are brilliant things. So we'll finish on this. The final is between Liverpool and Newcastle. Just a very quick one for you on that one, Kenny. It must mean a little bit as well, because obviously your brother Terry played in the 74 FA Cup final as well when Liverpool played Newcastle. That's right.
Yes, he did. It took us back to when we were kids growing up. We used to play a lot of football in front of the house together. And we watched all the cup finals, and our dream was to play at Wembley. After having watched the England team go and win the World Cup up them famous steps, we both got to the final in 74. He had the FA Cup final and I had the League Cup final.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they got beat 3-0 and lost, but we won. But it was kids' dream of when you're growing up. My dreams was anyway, and Terry's was to play at Wembley in a cup final, because I'd watched all the other cup finals as a kid growing up, and 74 was a great year for us both. Although his team lost, but it was, I mean, I'm 74 now, so it was like 1974. It reminds me quite a lot about that game in 74.
I can imagine. Prior to the 1996 final, we'll just briefly touch on this. The only manager that had played in a final and managed a team was Tony Buck, God rest his soul. But the difference between him and Brian Little doing it in 96 was that he was just there as an interim manager when they won the cup in 1970. So, Brian, you are the first person ever to officially manage a club and play for the same club in a final. How did you feel, and how did it rank winning the cup in 1996?
Probably more than anything else, because management was just, it's not easy. It doesn't come easy. It was hard work. I mean, playing football for me was something that I was blessed with. I was lucky. I never worried about football matches, and football management is, especially in the era that I managed in. When I look at it today and the staff that managers have around them and the things, I mean, I spent God knows how many hours at Villa Park with Doug Ellis and agents and things like that, and every single player came to me with their concerns. Now that I think the modern manager is surrounded with a fantastic amount of people who do a lot of hard work for him, a lot of work that weighs you down. So it was hard being a football manager in that era. It was enjoyable, but you needed to be young and energetic, and it was very tiring. So it was. I feel that was a real challenge to me, and the fact that I did it and achieved it, I'm really proud of that. And it's nice to know that obviously I knew Tony Buck was one of the managers, and the other obviously is Kenny Dalglish at Liverpool. So in the how many years did you say it is now? 64 years or something? 65 years of history.
This
only to be in the three people who've achieved that is quite something, isn't it? Really, So, and I never ever thought that. I'd never had a thought in my life as a football player about being a football manager. The fact that I had to retire, I last played at 26. I went into coaching because I didn't want to do anything. I realised then how much football meant to me. I wanted to be involved with it. So it was a strange pathway to management, one which wasn't plotted. But as I've said, the fact that it was taken away from me gave me the desire to want to do well. And I'm very proud of that particular sort of statistic. I don't normally live on stats, but that's a nice one to have, I guess.
Yeah, it was wonderful, and it was great to be at that final as well. On the day before, myself and a few other Villa fans went down and stayed near Covent Garden, and we were drinking with Leeds fans the day before. And not one Leeds fan fancied their chances against us. It was really, really weird. So what I want to do now, guys, is it's been an absolutely wonderful show. The insight from the three of you has been legendary, and it's been great to catch up, and thank you for your contributions to the book. Before we finish, let's just do the forecast for the final, the 65th year. Liverpool are playing Newcastle United. Brian, who are your favourites to win it, and give me your scoreline?
Oh, I've never done that in my life. Do you know that?
You're about to.
You know that? People ask me that all the time, and I just go to them, go away, I don't do that. So I can be quite blunt me at times, and I don't really like to do that to you now, but I predict, football matches, I say to people, there's so many ways to win and lose a football match. You can be the best team and still lose. You can have 57 shots and still lose. You can have one shot and win. I think it's a very competitive game. I think Newcastle have eased off a little bit because their eyes are on it. I'm a Geordie boy anyway, Newcastle fan as a young kid. So I'd like to see Newcastle win, but I genuinely think Liverpool will win. I think they just look a step or two ahead of everybody this season in many respects. And I think Liverpool can win. And I'll do it for you, Rob, but I'm not doing it any other time. I think it could be 2-0 to Liverpool.
Thank you. I promise you I won't badger you anymore for any four, as you've done 2 for me already. Right, Kenny.
Yes, sir. Well, you have to look at our 2 wins in 74 and 80. We were underdogs on both occasions, and I think Newcastle's is underdogs this time. But I'm a little bit like Brian, that forecasting results is not something I like doing. But I would agree with him that I think Liverpool will win the cup. And I'm going to go for a 3-1.
3-1. Okay. Mr. Teale.
I actually don't mind giving scores, but I never get them right, so it makes no difference. But to be quite honest, I can't see past Liverpool winning. I mean, I watched the game the other night, and Liverpool were strides ahead of Newcastle the other night, and I can't see any change in that. I don't think he'll play a weakened team. I think he'll go for it. And I'll go with Kenny on 3-1, I think.
Okay. Chris.
It's a cup game, isn't it?
Well done.
Well, anything.
We're now starting to call you Captain Obvious.
I mean, my head says Liverpool. I'd love Newcastle to win. I'll tell you what, I'll stick my neck out. I'll go for a 2-0 Newcastle.
Wow. That is a big call.
Massive.
You won't get any stick in the next podcast then, will you?
You know what? I'm on a roll in the office. I've picked some good scores lately.
We won't remind them of that at all for our next show.
No,
absolutely not.
Who you last?
Exactly. I hasten to add that we've also got in the studio a good friend of my little company, and also wrote Brian Little's book as well. We've got the excellent Simon Goodyear, who's joined us. Simon, give me your prediction.
3-1 to
3-1 to Liverpool. Okay, I'm going to go for 2-1 to Liverpool in that one there. So I've wrote the scores down, so we'll see exactly what's going on. I have, yes. I can't wait. I tell you what, if it's 2-0 to Newcastle, Teale, he's going to be bounced.
So are we on 100 quid each?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Right, so I'd like to thank Brian and Kenny for joining us. Here's to the next 65 years of the League Cup as well. Long may it continue, because we do need it. Teale, what are you up to? You're going to Spain, aren't you? You're going to Spain soon. So the next one that we do, you're going to be in a hot country.
Yeah, I'm at Villa Park tomorrow night, obviously, and then I'm at the Witten Arms on the following Tuesday for a get-together with the fans to watch the Bruges game. And then I've got a 150th anniversary due on the Sunday down at Villa Park on the 9th. And on the morning of the 10th, which just happens to be my birthday as well, I'll be on that plane over to Spain.
Good lad.
Fantastic. So
And I'll be back on the 26th.
We'll have a bit of cake in the studio in a couple of weeks' time then.
Yeah.
So I'll miss the Bruges home game, unfortunately, but hey ho, I've not missed a game all season at home, so missing one's not going to kill me, I don't think.
No, I think you've done very well there.
Fantastic.
I think you've done very well. Right, gentlemen, it's time now to cut the show, as they say, or what I'm saying. Big thank you to our guest for tonight, and we'll speak to you soon. The show goes out on Monday, the 3rd of March.
Yep.
So obviously we'll be putting it all over social media, and wish you all the best. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Rob. Cheers, chaps.
Thanks,
Kenny,
Thanks,
been
Brian.
great to see you.
All the
Love
best
you.
to you,
Take care. Sean, I'll see you tomorrow night, mate.
See you tomorrow night, Brian.
Take
Have
care.
a good
Thanks, Rob.
birthday, Sean.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Cheers, thanks, Kenny.
Take care. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, chaps.